Hey there, autism parents, welcome back. I need to have a real conversation with you today. One that might be a little uncomfortable, but absolutely necessary. And today we're talking about something most of us are afraid to say out loud. What autism parenting is really doing to our relationships and to ourselves. Now, before we dive in, I just want you to know this comes from a place of love and understanding because I've been there. We've all been there. And it's time we stopped pretending everything is fine when it's not. So let's start with something that I hear whispered in support groups, but never said openly. My marriage is dying, and autism is the excuse, not the cause. Can we just be honest about that for a moment? That intimacy that's missing, that connection that feels broken, did it really start when your child was diagnosed? Or had it been slipping away long before? And now autism stress is just the perfect cover story. And I know this hits hard, but here's what I see happening in so many autism families. You stop talking to each other about anything except autism and schedules and therapies and meetings. When was the last time you and your partner had a conversation about your dreams and your fears and your hopes? And it wasn't about your child? You've become a crisis manager instead, or crisis managers instead of lovers. You're dividing tasks, you're managing behaviors, you're putting out fires, but you're not building a life together anymore. And here's the part that's really hard to admit. Sometimes you look at your partner's normal life and feel resentful. They go to work, they have adult conversations, maybe they grab drinks with colleagues. Meanwhile, you're the one handling another meltdown, another phone call from the school, another sleepless night. Or maybe it's just the opposite. Maybe you're the one who gets to leave for work while your partner handles the daily chaos. And you feel guilty about the relief you feel walking out of that door. Now, some of you are thinking thoughts you're afraid to say out loud. For example, what would life be like if I was alone? Or what if I found someone who really understood what we're going through? So why don't we talk about this? Because we've created this mythology around autism families that we're supposed to be stronger and not weaker. We're supposed to be the inspiring couple who rallies together against all odds. And we tell ourselves we have to stay together for our child because they need the stability. But sometimes staying together in a broken relationship is less stable than creating two healthy homes. Or we think, maybe I can't handle being a single autism parent, but maybe you're already handling it alone. You're just doing it while living with someone who's checked out emotionally. Now let's talk about something even harder. You've become in this journey. And I don't mean the beautiful growth and the strength that you gained. I mean the parts of yourself you don't like, but you're afraid to acknowledge. Have you become more anxious? Have you become more controlling? Do you find yourself micromanaging everything because you feel like you're the only one who really understands your child's needs? Have you lost your sense of humor? That spontaneity you used to have. When was the last time you were genuinely silly or playful and not performing happiness for others, but actually feeling it? And here's a big one. Have you become bitter towards typical families? Do you find yourself judging other parents for their easy problems or feeling angry when you see families who seem to have it all together? I became the helicopter parent I used to criticize. I became hypervigilant about everything, every interaction, every environment, every potential trigger. And I thought I was being protective, but I was actually just becoming someone I didn't recognize. And then pessimism, that's a hard one. Somewhere along the way, many of us start expecting the worst. We're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always bracing for the next challenge. And we justify these changes by saying, this is just what autism parent requires, and I am just doing what I have to do to protect my child, or I don't have the luxury of being my old self. But here's what I want you to consider. What if protecting your child doesn't require you to lose yourself? What if being a good autism parent doesn't mean sacrificing your marriage or your joy or your sense of who you are? Autism didn't break your relationship. Autism didn't steal your personality. Those things were vulnerable to begin with, and autism stress just exposed the cracks. But there is a hope in that. If you created these problems, you can uncreate them. If you've changed in ways you don't like, you can change back, or better yet, change forward into someone who's even better than you were before. Your relationship issues aren't unfixable just because you have an autistic child. Your personal growth isn't impossible just because you're an autism parent. Let me tell you what your child really needs from you. They need parents who are whole people. They need to see what healthy relationships look like. They need to see that adults can handle stress without losing themselves. Your kiddo doesn't need you to sacrifice your marriage on the altar of their autism. They don't need you to become anxious, controlling, or a joyless version of yourself in order to feel loved and supported. In fact, when you model a healthy relationship with your partner and a healthy relationship with yourself, you're teaching your child some of the most important life skills they'll ever need. So, what do you do with all of this uncomfortable truth? You just start by admitting it. You stop using autism as an excuse for problems that existed before and would exist regardless. If your marriage is struggling, start talking to each other again. Not about autism-related things, not about IEPs or therapies, but about each other. When did you stop being curious about your partner's inner world? If you don't like who you've become, start making different choices. You can be protective without being controlling. You can be prepared without being pessimistic. And you can be dedicated without losing your sense of humor. Just watch your child and they will show you a sense of humor. So here's what I would like you to try this week. For your relationship, I want you to have one conversation with your partner that has nothing to do with your child or autism. Ask them, what's something that you've been thinking about lately that you haven't shared with me? Obviously not an autism-related topic. And then plan one activity together, even if it's just 30 minutes. That's about connection and not crisis management. Perhaps go out for lunch or dinner or even have a cup of coffee together. And I want you to try this for yourself in the next week. Notice when you're being controlling and ask, is this really necessary for my child's well-being? Or is this just my anxiety talking? And then find one thing that used to bring you joy and do that, even if it's just for 5 minutes. can catch yourself when you're being negative and ask, what would the person I want to be say about the situation? I know this sounds all very overwhelming. How can I work on my marriage when I'm barely keeping my head above water? Or how can I change who I've become when autism parenting takes everything I have? But here's the thing, you're not stuck. You're not doomed to have a struggling relationship just because you're an autism family. You're not condemned to lose yourself just because you're advocating for your child. Some of the strongest, most joyful, most connected people I know are autism parents. They figured out how to protect their children without sacrificing their marriage. And I have to say, my marriage is one of those. They've learned to be fierce advocates without losing their sense of humor. Now, sometimes we do lose our sense of humor, but try and get it back. The difference isn't their circumstances, it's their choices. So here's the permission. But perhaps you need to hear it's okay to want your marriage to thrive, not just survive. It's okay to want to like who you are, even while you're being an autism parent. And it's okay to want joy and connection and spontaneity in your life. These aren't selfish ones. They're human needs. And meeting those needs doesn't make you a worse autism parent. It makes you a better one. Your child deserves parents who are whole, connected, and genuinely happy. Not performing happiness, not white-knuckling through life, but actually enjoying the beautiful, challenging, meaningful life that you're building together. Okay, music break. The relationships that thrive in autism families aren't the ones that avoid the hard conversations. They're the ones that have them. They're the couples who say, we are struggling right now and we're going to figure this out together. The parents who stay themselves while raising an autism child aren't the ones who pretend everything is easy, rainbows and daisies. They're the ones who refuse to let the challenges define them. You can be an amazing autism parent and still be a passionate partner. You can advocate fiercely for your child and still maintain your sense of humor. You can handle whatever comes your way and still choose joy. So here's my challenge for you. Stop hiding from the truth. If your relationship is struggling, admit it and just start working on it. If you don't like who you've become, acknowledge it and just start changing. And if you need some help, I'm here to help you with that. Your autism journey doesn't have to cost you your relationship or your sense of self. In fact, it can be the catalyst for becoming an even better partner and a more authentic version of yourself than you were ever before. But only if you're willing to be honest about where you are and intentional about where you want to go. That's all for today, friends. I know this was heavy, but sometimes we need to shine a light on the hard stuff before we can heal it. Remember, you deserve love, joy, and connection in your life. Your autism journey doesn't have to cost you those things. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What resonated with you? What felt uncomfortable but true? You're not alone in this, and there's hope for whatever you're facing. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you next time.